I used to say to my husband, look, I've been listening to people's problems all day long. Please don't give me more problems to solve. The way that we frame burnout is that burnout is when we're running out of energy.
Yeah.
So we're trying to provide from a closed system. And so we run out because it's finite. It's limited. How much energy we have is limited when we're just relying on our social mammal. And our social mammal is wired for survival. That's it. It's wired for survival. However, we have an argument to make that we are more than just a social mammal. You can't just do experiments on rats and monkeys and extrapolate that to humans because we have consciousness in a different way than other mammals do. So the first concept around that is something that's called sovereign agency.
If you guys don't get anything else past this concept, in my experience, this is the most freeing, and I want to say that word again, this is the most freeing concept that you can have. So sovereign agency, what does it mean? So one of the things that we know is that when we talk about something, it's got to go through from my perception, through your filters, and then come back. So we're going to say this a couple of different ways, so hopefully it can land, which is why we did the presence breath just now.
Right. So okay, sovereign agency.
Yeah.
Simply.
I have a scholar next to me who, so I'm going to let her use her beautiful language to tell us about this.
Sovereign agency means you have the right to choose. You have the right to choose, and particularly you have the right to choose your inner state.
That sounds great, except what does that do? It removes the responsibility from anyone else. So that's kind of a tough thing to go through. It's like, well, if I'm responsible for my inner state,
I chose it.
Oh, wow, now we're getting a little stickier.
Right. So here's where I want to be really clear. We're not saying that we necessarily choose the things that happen to us. Things happen to us. We were born into a particular family. We have particular socioeconomic situation growing up. All those things just happened. We do get to choose our responses to those things. We do get to choose our state. And often, especially when we're having a nervous system response, it doesn't feel like there's any choice there. And so sovereign agency brings back that principle that actually, even when we're flooding, the nervous system is flooded, even in that, there's some choice. There's some choice. And we can teach people how to do that.
Yeah, this is not, there's a whole thing around this. So hang in there with us. Hang in there.
So we get to choose our responses, and we can actually become the observer of our experience, not just the one having the experience. And this is not new for you. You've already marinated in this idea in other spaces that you could be the observer of yourself, not just the one having the experience, right? That's not a new concept for most therapists. But imagine the impact that sovereign agency could have on the concept of burnout then, right? If my inner state is my choice, if I have choice around my inner state, okay, well then how does that map onto burnout?
This is where it gets really interesting, because out of my closed system, like a gas tank, I only have so much. So I've been with clients all day. I get home and my partner's whatever, I run out of gas at some point, and we hear that, right? I'm done.
Nothing left to give. Yeah. I used to say to my husband, look, I've been listening to people's problems all day long. Please don't give me more problems to solve. And he's like, whoa, yeah, my wife's a therapist, but I don't get to see that. I don't get to see what all her clients see, because I was just done at the end of, boom, 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 client days.
Because you're trying to pull something out of a space that it doesn't exist.
Right. So this is our closed system, right? Where the intuitive mind is kind of out of reach. We don't really know what that is. We're making our decisions, and we're moving through using our conscious and our subconscious, and it's a closed system. The opportunity, so this is what we call the misaligned state. What you see on the left here is what we call the misaligned state. On the right is
another option.
It's another option. So here we have access. So we're opening up to our intuitive mind, and then we have access to these different areas in the body that give us information. And I don't want to get too much into that. There's lots more about that in the book, and that'll kind of take us down a rabbit hole. But there's head brain, heart brain, gut brain. There's information available.
I think if we can do a little show of hands, we've all felt that, right? Something's happened in your external, and you feel it in your heart, or you feel it in your stomach, or you feel it, right? That's what we're saying here. It's nothing
so
too mystical.
So we have now access to information throughout the whole system, not just in our heads and not just based on our survival patterns that try to keep us safe. We actually have access to growth in this new frame. And here's the clincher. Okay. Here's the clincher.
Gotta watch it when she says that, you guys.
Our natural state is this.
Yes.
That's actually our original design, was to be in this state. Through our life experiences, we've adapted and created these frameworks that keep us safe, but that's not the truth of who we are. Those are just adaptations.
But to prove this, I'm gonna ask you to just take a moment and think of that one, maybe in the last year, one time where you had an experience that was like this. Because we all had them, but we just don't know how to get there on a regular basis. So maybe you're a skydiver and that's where it happens. I'm a motorcycle guy. That was my go-to thing. Get on my bike and I could just get into that the flow state, right? Athletes talk about this. Musicians talk about this. Most really creative people will tell you, I just got up in the middle of the night and I wrote the song. I don't know where it came from.
Or it could even be interacting with someone. You're having a coffee with a friend and 5 hours goes by and you were just kind of in it with each other and you didn't even notice time just stopped. We are designed for that. That is not something that only happens once in a while as a peak experience. That's actually how we were meant to live. And that's the foundational difference between what we're teaching and what mainstream psychology is teaching. Because in mainstream psychology, we're saying, let's figure out your contracted state. Let's label it. Let's get really technical about all the things that got you into this misaligned state. And let's try to help you from that state. And the therapist is often in that state as well.
How's that landing? That's a big statement Syra just made. Let me tell you, when we started to talk about teaching this stuff and bringing this through to therapists, we had some pretty, she goes, I don't know if I can say that. But I
know it. I know it from living it. I know it from stepping into sessions with clients and being like, I know I'm not at my best. I know all the things I'm supposed to do to show up for this person, and I will, but the energy's off and I don't know how to fix that. And we're saying that we can fix that. That there's a really simple, repeatable pathway to come back into alignment.
It's calling you back to this idea that we actually were designed to operate from this state. And the things that we've learned that have kept us here, have kept us in fight and flight and kept us in this closed place are what we're trying to protect, which is the very thing that's harming us.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't figure that out when we're here because we just get more of it.
Right.
Right?